name's Michelle Dittmer, and I run the Canadian Gap Year Association. I am working out of Burlington, Ontario. This is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, and Métis people. And I am so honored to work and live on this land that has been stewarded for many, many generations by the many Indigenous people that have taken care of this land, and through that have also experienced a lot of oppression and challenges that are still ongoing today. So I want to just honor them, thank them, and just continue to commit to truth and reconciliation and the work that we all have to do to restore the balance that needs to happen right here on Turtle Island. So that's who I am, and I'm really excited to get to know each and every one of you who is going to be popping in here and joining us today. I run the Canadian Gap Year Association. For those of you who don't know, the Canadian Gap Year Association, or as we lovingly call it, CanGap, we are a nonprofit organization. We support Canadians from coast to coast to coast with their gap year journey. That starts from deciding whether a gap year is right for you or not. And then if it is, how do you make it purposeful? We connect you with the tools, resources, programs, experiences, answers that you need to make the most of your gap time. So that's who we are. We are here to help you. Go to our website at any time. CanGap.ca is where you can find us. That's what we are all about, and we want to answer your questions. So one of the questions that often comes up is, what about travel? How do I do it? I've done this only with my family, or I haven't done this before. So this is our response to those questions. We want to make sure you have the information and the skills and the tools to plan your travel effectively. So the rundown for tonight is that I will be delivering this presentation, this information. I'll be inviting you to join in and put some answers to questions into the chat, because although we are meeting virtually, this goes so much better when it's interactive. So I would actually love to start out with, in the chat, if you could let me know where you are tuning in from, and perhaps what your dream destination would be. We're all here talking about travel today, so I'm curious what's going on, what's happening for you. Where do you want to go? Because I think it'll be really cool to see how many of you want to be headed to the same place, or the diversity in places that you guys are interested in checking out. And now, while you are populating that into the chat, so excited. Just give me 1 second. So while you're popping that into the chat, retry the link again. There we go. Naomi from Ottawa, Ontario. Amazing. Naomi, where is your dream destination? Let us know. So while you are doing that, what I want to do is give you a quick orientation to the platform and what it looks like. So you'll see right now you found us on the main stage. This is where we're going to be giving the presentation, but also over on the left-hand side, what you will see is the tab for the expo. So what is in the expo? This is little booths, little digital booths for all sorts of different programs, opportunities. A lot of them are travel-based, whether it's traveling internationally or traveling locally. You can click on that link or on the expo, and you can go and check out some of those travel programs. And we're going to talk about what that looks like. But after we finish this formal presentation, which should wrap up around 9:30, please come on and check that out by clicking on the Expo tab before you leave, because there are some incredible resources for you there. I love seeing this. Hey, Naomi, you and Colin should end up in Japan together. Side note, I have been to Japan. It is a lovely country. And my husband's actually going there in March of this year without me. Very cool. We got Laura Lee wants to go to Paris. Amazing dream destination, Edinburgh, Scotland. Oh, this is amazing. I love dreaming of travel because the world is such an amazing place. And there is so much that you can see and do out there. Really cool. And we've got really literally coast to coast here, Nova Scotia right through to Vancouver. I love, love, love seeing that. So glad you're here. Now you know me. Now you know the platform. Let's talk all things travel now. How does that sound for you guys? This is what we're going to cover through today. We're going to be going through how do you define your travel why? Identifying what kind of travel best suits you, because there's many, many ways to travel. We're going to talk about working abroad. So not only do you get the travel experience, but you get that full immersion experience. We're going to talk about travel planning logistics, and we're going to suggest some resources to help you out throughout the entire experience. Now, if you have questions at any time, pop them into the chat. This is your time. This is your opportunity to get the answers to the questions that you have burning that you need support with. So that's what I want to help you with. So don't be shy. Ask your questions. Sound good? All right. If I haven't lost you, pop an exclamation mark in the chat. Just let me know that you're still breathing and I haven't completely lost you. Melissa, just dream destination, Switzerland. Love it. Love it. We got lots of Europe and some Asia already happening. This is awesome. Great. Good. So glad you're here. All right, let's continue on here. Okay, so let's talk about finding your travel why. Now, if you have ever done a gap year workshop with me, you will know that I am a big fan of hey Will, that's a number one, not an exclamation mark. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just getting on you there. Okay, so your travel why. This is the same as your gap year why. This is really where we need to start, and this is going to be your first activity that I'm going to get you to think about and do. Is why do you want to travel? Really digging deep into why you want to travel. And this is so important for you because it's going to define the rest of this workshop for you. So I'd love if you could share your why in the chat. So what is it about travel that is exciting for you, or what is the purpose of your travel? If somebody was to ask you, why do you want to travel? What would that answer be? Pop it in the chat, share it with all of us. We'll see again how similar or how different our responses are, because really travel is so very personal. And I'm so excited to have you here. Amazing. I think it's a really important question that we dive into and get all of these things out in the open, because like I said, this is going to be your North Star that's going to guide a lot of the ways that you're going to plan your travel. In the past, I've heard lots of things like, I want to see the world. I want to see how other people live. I want to get out of my bubble. I want to have an adventure. Okay, yeah, there we go. I like to see more of the world and gain more independence. Boom. I love it. I think that's really so important to know that you can gain so many skills, especially that independence piece, by heading out on the road and taking the reins of your destiny, if I'm not being too dramatic there, and really seeing what you are capable of. Love it. Will saying, I want to take advantage of the opportunity, follow my passion, and explore the world. Amazing. I love that word passion, something you're really excited about. Melissa wants to learn about herself and the world and cultures and having that feeling of freedom and adventure. Oh, and boost confidence. I love this. Different perspectives and cultures. Amazing. These are all amazing answers, and there is no wrong answer. If you're like, I won the lottery and I want to spend a lot of money, great. That's a great answer for wanting to travel. So, whatever your answer is, it is valid, and really glad that you are sharing those things. And keep that in the back of your mind as we work through some of the activities that we do, because your why is also going to feed into your travel style. And I'm going to be asking a bunch of questions, and I want you to kind of keep a record of this somewhere. So maybe jot down the answers to the following questions, because this is going to help you figure out how you want to travel. So we've got the why, but now the how do you want to travel? So let's actually jump into a bunch of questions. First, we need to look at what experience do you have as a traveler? And you don't have to share these ones in the comments, but take note of it. Think about what experience do you have. Will, I also want to make my friends jealous. Amazing. Thank you for that honesty. I love it. Cool people that exist outside of our hometowns. Yeah, for sure. We get in those little bubbles. Oh my goodness. You guys are brilliant. So what do you think about what experience you have? Have you traveled before? Yes or no? Have you traveled with your family before? Yes or no? Have you traveled to an all-inclusive where things were all taken care of for you, and all you had to do was show up? Or did you have to do a little bit more planning or a little bit more decision making? So what experience do you have? Take note of that, because we want to make sure that when we are going on a travel adventure, we are challenging ourselves, but we're not being unrealistic about what we are capable of. We want to be able to build ourselves up to be able to be world travelers and away from home for months at a time, but we don't want to get too far out of our comfort zone that we're actually in our overwhelm zone and panicking and biting off more than we can chew. So being realistic about what experience we have and what is the next step beyond that, that's where we're really going to do. And over the course of your gap year, you can continue to build step by step by step to grow your experience and to grow your skill set so that you can continue taking on bigger and larger and more complex adventures. This is something that will go on for your entire life. Maybe you've never traveled and this is going to be your first step. And maybe on your gap year, the most adventurous thing you can do is travel within Canada. Great. Then maybe on the summers in between years of school, you're going to go internationally. Maybe after you graduate, you're going to go and move to England for a year. Whatever that is, this is a continuous thing that you can continue to build on. So that's question number one. The next question I want you to think of is, how long can you handle being away from home? Not how long do you want to be away from home, but how long do you realistically think you can be away from home? And this number is going to probably reflect maybe what you answered in the previous one. Maybe it's something to do with how close you are with your family or what level of independence you currently have, and how you want to take it again, just one step further, not 100 steps further, but one step further. So how long can you realistically handle being away from home would be the second thing I would like you to think about. Next thing is, do you want to travel solo? Do you want to travel with a friend? Or do you want to travel with a group? These, again, are very different styles. They require different levels of independence. They require different levels of decision making. They also have different price tags. So take a little bit of a think about the group of people, or if you want to go solo, what would that look like? I hope this is helpful for you. If I haven't lost you, put another exclamation mark in the chat, so I know that you are still with me and not dozing off. That's very helpful for me. I try and keep the energy up, but those exclamation marks really help me. Thanks there, Colin. Appreciate it. You don't bring the chaos, you bring the excitement. All right, travel styles. Here we go. Next question for you. What budget are you working with? Thanks, Emma, Naomi. Great to see those exclamation marks. Looking at the budget that you're working with. This is really important because travel costs money. Flat out, we need to know what we're working with. There are ways, and we're going to talk about budget near the end of this presentation, but let's be realistic about it. If you have a $1,000 budget, you are probably not going to be able to travel around the world on a cruise ship. So knowing what your budget is will start to give us a little bit of parameters of how we can work with that, but we'll talk about how do we draw that budget out, how do we make our money go as far as we can, and what are the ways that we can modify our plans to fit our budget. So having that number, an approximation, doesn't mean you have to, I have $3,462.72. Doesn't need to be that, just a ballpark. What are you looking at? That will be super helpful for your travel style. Next question, what type of accommodations are you comfortable with? Would you be comfortable staying with a local family? Would you be comfortable in a hostel where you're sharing a room with strangers? Would you be comfortable in a hotel room? What does that accommodation look like for you? What pace do you want to travel at? Are you the type of person that wants to see 7 countries in 7 days? Are you the type of person that wants to get really in depth with one particular location or culture where you want to spend a lot of time really getting to know the local people, the local shops? Or do you want to be firing through and seeing as much as you can? Those things are really important to start to define as you think about your travel plans. Going off of that, what types of activities do you want to do? Are you an adrenaline junkie? You want to do the bungee jumping, you want to do the skydiving, the hot air balloons, the whitewater rafting. Maybe you are the culture person. You want to go to the museums. Maybe you're a foodie and you just want to eat your way through Japan. Thinking about what are the types of activities you want to do. Again, this is going to help you really define what that style is and what this trip is going to look and feel like. Now, if you chose that you want to travel with other people, maybe you got a friend coming with you, do your answers align with the person that you want to travel with? Very, very important. Having a travel partner that works for you is the best experience possible. Having a travel partner who has a different idea of what this trip should look like can end in disaster. So check and see that you are aligning with the people that you want to travel with. Sound good? So those are my questions about defining your travel style. After this workshop, we're going to send out an email. We have a fun little quiz. What is your travel style? So you can click on the link, do the quiz, and you'll come out. It's like one of those like personality quizzes. It will come out with a travel style for you. And then we will follow up with some emails with resources specific to that travel style to give you a hand figuring it out, how you want to make these things happen. All right, we're going to talk about who. Who do you have on your side? What does this look like? And who are the people that you can turn to? So for some of you, you may want to be working with a travel agent. So what is the role of a travel agent? A travel agent is a travel specialist who can help you with the planning process. They can support you in buying flights, booking cruises, booking resorts, hotels. They're somebody who knows the lay of the land. They are an expert in this field, and they are somebody that you can tap into who can do the booking, do the planning for you, or maybe that's not your style. Maybe you want to do something else. So travel agents are one tool that you have at your disposal. Another tool you have at your disposal is group travel organizations. So these are the folks that are in the expo booths. So down on the left-hand side of your screen, where you see expo, there are tons of group travel companies or organizations that are out there that will help you with travel. And what this looks like is they have a set itinerary that you can sign up for and join as an individual, and they take care of all the on the ground logistics. So they will worry about most of your food, your accommodations, what activities you're doing. So you see the itinerary and you sign up and join them for whatever they have on the agenda. We also have a list of these. If you don't get to the expo, cangap.ca/programs. They are there full time as well. So at any point, if you want to see a group of some of the travel organizations that exist, you can check them out on our website. Now, when we're looking at all of these different organizations and travel opportunities, really when we're looking at an organization, we want to make sure we're looking for the right fit of organization. So the first thing that everybody wants to know about is safety. And these are questions that you should be asking any travel provider that you are working with, is figuring out what their safety protocols are. What happens if there is an emergency on the ground? What happens if there's an emergency at home? How are they communicating at home with your parents? All of these questions around safety are really important. We're actually dropping a podcast tomorrow, actually. This is really good timing. With Dave from Cornerstone Safety, and he walks us through how do you evaluate different providers for their level of safety and support that they provide to you on the ground. So if you need more details about that, take a listen on any of the podcast platforms that you use. Just Google the Gap Year Podcast. It's pretty simple, and it will drop tomorrow. Also, it's on our YouTube channel, so you can also watch it there. If you want to see this face and Dave's face, you can see it on YouTube. So there's safety. You want to know what activities they're going to do. So you'll look at the agenda, look at the itinerary, and see if it's going to check all the boxes of the things that you want to do while you are on the ground. Each program is also going to have a budget listed. Really important that you look at what is included and what is not included. All of these things, we want to be able to compare apples to apples. But if you look at one program price and it looks extremely, much cheaper than all the others, check and see what's included. Maybe they're not going to pay for your food. Maybe the accommodations, they have you in homestays instead of a hotel, and maybe that's not something you're looking for. So look at the details of what is included and what is excluded, and think about that when you are making your budget and when you are comparing different program providers, so you can see that you're not actually comparing apples to oranges, you're actually looking apples to apples. Other things that you should be asking of travel programs is how old are the participants? A lot of retirees like to travel. And I'm not sure if this is what you're going for, but maybe you do or do not want to end up on a bus full of folks who are in their 70s traveling around. So figuring out what their group size is, what the age of the participants are, can really help you figure out if it's going to be the right fit for you and the style of travel that you want to have. Other things that might be important to you is if it is perhaps a volunteer travel opportunity, how ethical and how sustainable are the practices that they have. This could be working in collaboration with the local people that you are going to be volunteering for. If you're looking at sustainability, maybe it's important to you that your organization is staying at eco lodges or that they have a carbon offset for the flight. So knowing those practices can be important to you and your personal values as well. And the last thing that I've got on my list here for this finding a fit is what is their reputation? And don't ask them what their reputation is because they're going to think they're pretty good. But check and see if you can find out independent reviews. So jump on Reddit, see what other people are saying about this organization. Check out gooverseas.com. They often will have ratings there. Look at their Yelp if they've got a Yelp or a Google review and read the comments because that is quite often some of the most honest feedback. But the flip side of that is also take it with a grain of salt. because the people who like to post things are either people who were really, really blown away or people who were really, really upset with something. So the happy medium is somewhere in the middle of that, but it is good data for you to take a look at as well. Cool. All right, that was a lot of talking. Let's see. Let me know in the chat if you want to travel solo or if you want to travel with friends or if you want to travel with a group. I'm curious in the chat if you can let me know while I take some water here, because I'm trying to get through this quickly. Talking a lot. Awesome. So let me know if you want to travel solo with some friends or with a travel group. Lots of options out there. So let me know in the chat. Other things to take into consideration as you are traveling, or things you should think about prior to traveling. The world is a big place. There are lots of things happening around the world. There are different ways that people are treated around the world. So these are some things that are really things that we should be thinking about as we are planning our trip. So the first recommendation here is going to travel.gc.ca. This is our federal government for everything related to traveling outside of the country. So they have travel advisories for countries. So you can click on the country you're interested in traveling to, and it will let you know what the federal government recommends in terms of travel, whether you get a green light, a yellow light, or a red light. Really, really helpful information as you're making decisions on where you want to travel. That being said, things are happening and changing all the time. So you may leave the country when you've got the green light, and maybe there is, like, knock on wood, knock on everything. Maybe there is an instance of civil unrest, or there is a giant tsunami that comes. Completely was not on your radar, unexpected. We want to make sure that you're staying safe while you are abroad. So also on travel.gc.ca, there's the opportunity to register yourself with the government as somebody who is out of the country. And what that does is, in that case, there is a way to know that you are a Canadian citizen, that you are out in a country and there's something going on, and our government can do their best to support you in that situation. So really, really helpful to check that out. As well, different identities around the world are not all treated equally, or they're treated differently than they are here in Canada. So if you belong to a community, please, please, please do your research. Check out and see what is going on around the world and where you are going to be safe, where you need to take certain precautions. And here's a couple of different organizations that can support you. So our lovely friends at the International Gay and Lesbian Travel Association have incredible resources on their site to support our wonderful brothers and sisters who are part of the 2S LGBTQ plus community. There are resources for Black and Brown travelers. This is a really cool website where folks can actually report on their experience in different parts of the world. And other ways to support Black and Brown travelers. So no matter what your identity is, make sure you do that research to know that you are stepping into a place that is going to be accommodating of you. And it could be as simple as dietary needs. It could be as complex as faith or religions. All of these things come into play, and we just want to make sure that you're going to be as safe as possible because you are amazing how you are, and we want to minimize any impact that your identity might have on you while you are out and abroad. So I see we've got some people traveling solo with friends, solo trip with a group, solo. Oh my goodness, lots of solo travelers. You guys are very adventurous. I love it. So we talked about all of these different things, but what I want to do now is I actually have a friend here. This is my friend Colin, and I'm going to bring him in. He is an expert on working abroad. And he's going to share with us a little bit about what that means and how you can cross your T's and dot your I's and figure out how to work in another country, whether that's on your gap year or this is your next step after your gap year solo travel. He'll give you all the details. So welcome, Colin.
Hey, thanks a lot, Michelle. Is it cool if I present or do you?
It sure
Yeah,
is.
cool.
So you're going to have to present and then
That's,
I have to put it, give you access to it on the screen. So
okay, cool.
if you share, then I will give power to you and I will disappear. So we'll give him a second to figure that out. I'm curious in the chat, have you ever considered working in another country, either on your gap year or in the future? So curious what that looks like for you. Let us know in the chat if that's something you've considered or if this is a new option for you. Colin, I love the new branding, by the way. Looks great.
We're trying to do better.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to disappear and leave these folks in your very capable hands.
Awesome.
And be back in a couple minutes. I'm not going away for good.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? So yeah, my name's Colin Alone. I work with International Experience Canada, which is Government of Canada's youth mobility visa. And so basically today I'm going to be explaining how you can work and travel abroad as a Canadian in a bunch of different countries. Whoops, I think the sharing, sorry, one moment, guys. All right, so basically the way there's a lot of benefits to working and traveling abroad, as I'm sure you can, as you sure you know, and Michelle was speaking about a bunch of them before. Something that we hear from the youth ambassadors who work with us, who've gone on these experiences in the past, they'll often tell us that they've learned a lot about themselves. But there's really interesting research that's also coming out that shows like there are improved life skills that people get from these experiences. People who tend to go on these work abroad experiences for an extended period of time tend to have a lot more confidence. And they're also like much more aware of the world around them. And they'll keep an awareness of like the economic and social situation of the country that they lived in for long after their time that they were abroad. But they also make international connections and friends while they're out there that can last a lifetime. A big thing that we see is that folks who do go abroad tend to have a better time at learning languages because they've been immersed in the experience. So maybe you were taking some classes and it wasn't really sticking exactly, but you kind of understand the fundamentals a little bit. Getting into a culture where you're just totally immersed in it and you're speaking it day to day, even if you're uncomfortable, but you just kind of have to, it's the best way to kind of gain fluency in that language. Really important thing that folks talk about is that when they've gone on these experiences, their resume seems more interesting to employers. So I always say that there's a big difference between, working at Tim Hortons in your local community and working at a cafe in France for a summer. There's a huge difference in that, and there's a different kind of story that you can tell and the kind of competencies that you developed while you were abroad that can make a really big difference when you're applying to just kind of give yourself a little bit of a leg up compared to the competition that you're going to be going up against. And an interesting thing is the research is showing that people who do go on these experiences tend to have improved employment outcomes. There's a lot of research that was coming out of England that speaks to how folks who have gone on international experiences during their university or immediately afterwards tended to have less unemployment than those who kind of just stayed locally. And the interesting thing is that the differences in those outcomes had to do, it went even beyond just privilege, so like those who came from an underprivileged background and still went on these international experiences, they still had better employment outcomes on average than the folks that just stayed. And so these kinds of experiences, there is something about what's gained on them from the kind of skill level and confidence that really does make an impact on employment over time. And then there's academic success. In those same studies from England, they were finding that folks who went on these international experiences tended to have higher grades than those who just stayed locally. We're not quite sure why this is, but it does seem to be the case. And then finally, they have a better understanding of the global market. You know, when you go and you work somewhere else in a different country, you kind of understand the different ways that businesses behave, kind of different ways that the culture operates. And it makes it so that you can better engage in the global marketplace in the future. So now that we said that, here's the bad news. There are a bunch of opportunities and benefits to being able to work and travel abroad. The problem is, to be able to do so for an extended period of time, you're going to need to have a work permit. And work permits can be pretty costly, and they can take quite a long time to get, and it can be pretty complicated. Luckily, for Canadians, we have International Experience Canada, and that's for Canadians between 18 to 35, so that they can work and travel for up to 2 years in any of our over 30 partner countries and territories. Now, there's some complications to it in that there's like different kinds of work permits. There's an open work permit and there's employer specific. But today I want to focus mostly on the open work permit because it's the simplest and it's easiest for you in the context of wanting to be able to just kind of like explore a place and supplement your travel through income while you're out there. Basically, the rule is that it's cheaper, faster, and easier to get a work permit using IEC. So, for example, traditionally, if you wanted to get a work permit in Ireland, it would cost you €1,000, and you would need to have an employer sponsor you so that you could get the job. So that means you need to have a job before you go and convince that employer to sponsor you. It means you're going to need to drop €1,000 to be able to go abroad. And it can take up to a year for the processing of that specific visa. With IEC, if you wanted to go to Ireland, it costs $150 Canadian. It's processed, I think, under 3 months. And it's an open work permit, which means you can work for anybody in the country. So you don't even need a job before you go. You can just show up in the country, find a job while you're there. If the job doesn't work out, you can quit. You can still remain in the country, and you can find another employer. So there are big differences to being able to go on an IEC work permit. Now, these are our partner countries around the world. As I said, there's over 30 of them, and this list is constantly expanding. We're always negotiating new agreements. And as I was going over your lists before, basically every country that you had mentioned that you guys wanted to go to were all some of our partner countries. Now, it's important to note that if you want to go to any of these countries, the IEC visa isn't like, I get an IEC visa and I can go to England, then France, then Ireland. It's the visas for each individual country, right? So it's for 2 years to work in England. It's for 2 years to work in France specifically. It's super important to recognize that each country is a little bit different. So while I said it's for 18 to 35-year-olds and you're being a Canadian citizen, there are different requirements that vary from country to country. So the age limit, for the most part, it's 18 to 35. Some countries only go up to 30. Some of them don't go for the full 2 years. Some of them want you to just stay for 1 year. Some of them say that you can't work for the same employer for the full period of the work permit. They're going to have some other kind of restrictions. The participation fee, like I was saying before, for Ireland, it's $150. For Australia, it's around $400. They're going to have different financial requirements. So the expectation that they have for you to have a certain amount in your bank account just to prove that you're going to be able to pay your rent when you get there. And the processing times are going to be different, and the application process is going to be different for each and every country, because it's the countries themselves that set up the application process and set the rules. We are just, as a government of Canada, what we do is we negotiate with those countries so that we can make sure that there's agreement so that these visas do exist for you. So with all that said, and all the kind of high level kind of intricacies of the policy and how all this works, let's break it down into some 7 simple steps for like how you would have to plan if you wanted to get going to go on one of an IEC adventure. So the first step is to go to our website, which is canada.ca/IEC. There, you're going to have all the details that you need to know for the application process. They're going to have some interesting fun facts about the country that you're interested in. You're going to choose the country that you're interested in on our website, and on there, there's going to be all those details. Then you're going to want to determine your budget to figure out, now that you understand what the costs are going to be for the application process, what wiggle room do you have for being able to work and travel abroad, for your airfare costs, etc. Then you're going to want to be doing some research on discussion groups, on what others have done in the past in that country. And they'll often be really good about being able to point you in the right direction for like how to apply for jobs and what kinds of things are available. And then, just like Michelle was talking about before, you're going to want to go to travel.gc.ca to constantly monitor for travel advice and advisories, but also, as she was saying, to register when you do leave. Then you're going to want to prepare your travel documents and get your life in order for this next big adventure. And then you're going to want to apply directly to that country for the work permit. You can get to that country's application page directly from our website. But as I said, not every country is like a fully online application process. Some are paper, some want you to go to an embassy. So it's important to think through which country you want to go to and the specific requirements for that country. But yeah, basically that's International Experience Canada and how you can work abroad as a Canadian. It makes it a lot simpler than going on the other kinds of work permits that are available out there. So with that, I'll pass it back over to Michelle, but this is our website, and you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook for all the goings on at IEC and the stories of folks who've gone on these experiences in the past. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming. It's always a pleasure to hear about this. And I'm not sure if you saw in the chat, but lots of affirmative people considering this.
Awesome.
Definitely looking at it, considering before travel, looking into internships in Asia. So I'm sure they got lots of information from you. And now they've got the website all set up. And for the folks that are sticking around going to the expo, IEC has a booth there that you can, follow the link to directly. So thanks for joining, Colin.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Ciao.
Yeah. Bye. All right. So amazing. Such helpful information from Colin there. We got 15 minutes left. We're going to continue to jam pack it with information for you. So let's keep going on some travel logistics elements here. So when you're doing your planning for your travel, there's lots of things that are going on. Things that we need to think about for sure that are pretty obvious is flights. What are we thinking about when it comes to flights? We want to make sure that we're looking obviously at price, because they tend to be one of the bigger ticket items that are out there, which can be really great. But we know what they're going to cost. So looking at the price. Also looking at the flight path. So are there going to be any layovers, or can you take advantage of layovers? One of the best airports in the world, in my opinion. I've done a lot of traveling for a layover is in Amsterdam. They have an incredible airport and a train right there that'll take you right into the heart of the city. So if you've got a 12-hour layover in Amsterdam, you can go and check off a bunch of tourist attractions or get a meal in the city. So checking out the flight paths can also be really helpful. And so you know what you are up against. Next thing I want you to think about is your accommodations. So where are you going to be staying? Are you going to be staying at a hotel? Are you going to be staying at a hostel? For those of you who are new to hostels, hostels are very cheap accommodations for young people, usually people who are backpacking or traveling. Great place to meet people, and they often have different categories of rooms. So at a hostel, you still can get a private room in a lot of them. Some of them offer shared rooms, so you can have a room for you and your friends that are traveling. Some of them, usually you have a shared bathroom space with the rest of the people. You don't have like a bathroom within your room. But I've been in hostels where they have been like 3 or 4 bunk beds high. I've been in a hostel that was a room with just 40 cots in one big giant room. So lots of different ways to check that out, but they tend to be the most affordable way to sleep. Or homestays, staying with the locals. So lots of things to consider. Homestays, we don't usually organize by ourselves, but if we're traveling with an organization, they often have connections locally. Other things to think about: insurance. Do you need to buy an external insurance? These can be very, very helpful when it comes to having to cancel your trip. So you can think about getting external coverage. So something like CAA. So CAA or any insurance company offers travel insurance. So that in the event that you do have to cancel it, if you get sick, if your plans change, if they lose your baggage, all of these things can be covered by insurance. So you can look for an external insurance provider like CAA. Or sometimes if you're purchasing on a credit card, the credit card actually has its own insurance. So think about that and investigate what the insurance policy is on the credit cards that you are using to book some of your flights, hotels, things like that. Other things that we need to think about is, what is the communication plan home? I think this is really important to set the expectations with your parents at home, especially as a young traveler. How are they going to hear from you? How often are they going to hear from you? So that they're not freaking out. So if you set the expectation you're going to call them once a week, then they know not to expect a call every single day. And they don't think there's something wrong if you haven't called in 2 days. So make sure you're having that communication plan sorted out. Makes it really, really easy. Also, you want to understand what's going to happen to your cell phone in a different country. There are different cell providers. Rogers and Telus do not exist in the US. Rogers and Telus do not exist in Paris. And sometimes our phones don't even have the right SIM cards to be able to connect to the local networks. So check with your cell phone provider to see what it would look like if you took your cell phone with you to another country and see what else happens there. So check that out and do your research on your phone, because you cannot rely on it, especially if you're going to rely on it for directions or your plane tickets or calling home or keeping in touch with your friend that you're traveling with. Make sure that you're going to have a working phone on the ground. Naomi, I see your question. I'll come back to it in a second. Thinking about dates of travel. You'll notice that sometimes prices drop significantly, especially if you're traveling to a tropical destination. I would bet you a lot of money that those lower prices come in hurricane season or in the winter months where it's maybe not as appealing to travel. So definitely before you book, check the weather conditions. When is it hurricane season? When do they have more earthquakes? When does it snow there? Because a lot of people don't realize, a lot of people want to travel to Australia and New Zealand, and they head out over the summer months, which is actually their winter down there. So make sure you're aware of the seasons that you are stepping into when you are traveling around the globe. So Naomi wants to know, if you are severely injured in another country, how hospitals would work for international travelers. Great question. You are going to have to pay for your support on the ground. So yeah, you're going to have to pay. That's just how it works. So if there is an injury, or you need to see a doctor, or you need to get medicine, it is most likely going to come out of your pocket. In some cases, your insurance company will cover that for you. So you'll have to look at your insurance policy and see what that is. Sometimes, not very often, they will be able to pay it on the ground for you. So while you're in country, you don't actually have to hand over any money. But more often than not, if they are going to cover it, it's going to be a reimbursement. So you'll have to keep all of your receipts. And when you get home, you submit them to the insurance company, and they will cut you a check for however much it was spent out of your pocket. So just be prepared for that. And that's why it's a really good idea to have a credit card. So, pardon me, even if you don't have a credit card in Canada, when you're traveling abroad, having a Visa or a MasterCard can be really helpful in those types of situations where you may not have 200 euros on you to pay for whatever is happening. They're not going to refuse you service, but they're going to have a bill attached to it. So great question, Naomi. Thanks for asking. All right, budget. I know this is a hot topic for people. So how do you make a budget for traveling? We said we got to find an experience that fits within our budget. So make an initial budget. And I can tell you right now, the budget is going to be way higher than you think it is. And that's okay. We're going to talk about how do we bring those numbers closer together. So when you're doing that, think about your flights, your accommodations, your food, your entrance fee, your insurance, your gear that you need. All of this stuff is going to start to add up, because often we think, okay, I'm going to get my flights and my hotels and my food, and then I'm good to go. But then all of a sudden, oh, I need a backpack for traveling. Oh, I need a new pair of shoes for traveling. Oh, I want to bring a really good camera for traveling. Or I want to go to this amusement park. I want to go to Disneyland Paris. I want to go to, Disneyland Japan. Why am I on Disney? But those things can get pricey, and they'll add up over the course of your time. You can do some research. The Lonely Planet series of books and websites, they usually have an approximate daily rate that you would spend if you were traveling in that country. They'll usually say there's a budget version, an average version, and then like a deluxe version. So you can actually see, okay, I'm going to go to Thailand. In Thailand, it's $26 a day. So I'm going to be there for 2 weeks, 26 times 14. And you can get a good sense of what things might cost you. So that can be really helpful for you to figure out what that might look like. The second thing you want to do when you're doing your budget is look at when items will need to be paid for. So for example, you're going to have to pay for your flights before the day you leave for your trip. So if you're planning a trip to Paris and you're working from now until the day you leave to be able to afford it, you can't save up the money you're going to be making in the last 3 weeks, because you'll have to have purchased your flights ahead of time. So think about, when are you going to have to pay out this money, and when are you going to have access to that money? So making sure that you know your timelines can be very, very helpful, so that you know that you either have more time to make additional money, or that there's going to be bills to be paid. Boo to being an adult. And you want to make sure you have the money available for you at each stage. So once you've made this list and your dream trip all of a sudden seems unattainable financially, Do not fret. That is not true. We just have to make some adjustments and some changes to the structure, to the plan, and figure out how do we bring that budget number that we had closer together with that projected budget that we're going to have. How do we actually make those things come closer together? So we have two options. We can increase the amount of money we have available to us. We can work more hours. We can get a job that pays more. We can delay our trip. So instead of traveling in December, maybe we're not going to have enough money. We need to bump it back and we're going to travel in February. So we can earn more money. We can also look at opportunities for some free money that's out there. So looking for scholarships or bursaries that are out there. The Canadian Gap Year Association has a scholarship, cangap.ca/scholarships. You can use that for travel. RBC Future Launch. If you Google RBC Future Launch Scholarship, there's $1,500 there. And a lot of people who have traveled with organizations have received that money for travel experiences, which is great. And if you're traveling with organizations, always check out and ask what their financial aid situation is. Thousands and millions of dollars go unclaimed because people don't ask if there is any financial support. So that's if you're traveling with an organization. Air Canada is not going to give you a discount on your flight. So it's more those organizations that are going to be able to support it. The next thing is, how can you actually reduce the costs of your travel experience? Obviously, the flight is sometimes the biggest thing. So sometimes it's a matter of changing location. Man, I don't think I can afford a flight to Australia because it's like literally the other side of the world. But maybe I can afford a flight to England. So that's one way of decreasing the price, is changing location. Iceland on a daily basis, it's very expensive, versus Thailand on a daily basis is very inexpensive to travel to. So the location change can change in flight costs and in daily costs of living. Other things you can do to reduce the cost is change the number of days. If you wanted to travel for 3 months and that's just not going to happen, bring it back down, travel for 1 month or travel for 3 weeks. And that will significantly reduce the cost of your travel experience as well. You can also work abroad. So if you wanted to head to France, maybe you want to, instead of just traveling there, maybe you're going to become an au pair and work with a French family. Or maybe, like Colin said, you're going to get a job in a cafe on the Champs-Élysées in Paris. Whatever you're doing. So you can work abroad. So you're actually going to get that cultural immersion and have that experience while also being able to be in another country. Looking at discounted ways to travel, looking at things like if you're traveling Europe, the Eurail pass, getting your student travel card. You can get discounts at a lot of the different experiences around the world if you have your student travel cards. All sorts of things that can help you bring that cost down a little bit. Staying with friends and family can also be a really great tactic. So if you have a great uncle or your mom's old university roommate lived in Edinburgh, then go stay with them. Save yourself the money. They'll probably feed you. They'll probably let you stay for free, and they'll probably give you a ride around town to anywhere you want to go. So you can save money that way as well. So just don't give up on it altogether. Just be creative and figure it out. So we're coming to the end of our time here. I stayed pretty much on track. Lots of information. Here's what you need to do in summary. Number 1, figure out your priorities. What type of traveler are you? What type of experience do you want? Number 2, make a plan. Figure out all of those details. Where are you going to stay? What are you going to do? Who are you going to travel with? Number 3, make a budget. Number 4, adjust that budget or that plan to make it work for you. And step number 5 is to get out there, see the world, travel, have fun, have a great time. So we're going to be sending you out an email with the quiz on what type of traveler are you. So fill that out. It's going to be lots of fun. Check out the expo. or go to cangap.ca/programs if you want to see what type of travel organizations are out there. Now, before I let you go, I would love to know, what is your biggest takeaway from this session? What is something that you learned or something that's really going to help you in your travel planning process? I'm always interested to hear what information was helpful to you, so that we can continue to offer really valuable workshops to all of the folks out there on gap years. So if you could share in the chat what was something that was super valuable to you, something you're going to take away from our workshop today, that would be amazing. And that being said, if you have other questions, don't be shy to pop them in the chat. I am here answering your questions, and totally happy to answer anything that you've got on your mind. And I will do my best to give you really accurate information. If you have other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to CanGap. We are doing our best to answer all your questions so that you feel confident in taking those next steps and heading out on a travel experience. So that's kind of where I am going to leave you this evening. It has been such a pleasure to share my passion for travel. And if you have questions about particular destinations, I can also answer those for you. I have been to Japan. I have been to Paris. I have been to Edinburgh. So if you have questions about those destinations, I will hang around for a little bit as well, and answer your questions. So I may come off video because my throat is tired of talking, and I can answer them in the chat, but I will stick around until about 9:40 in the chat answering any questions. So really hopeful for you and excited for you. And send me an email, send me a photo of you taking on the world, because I am really excited for all of you. So Melissa, good information about visas and phones. Yeah, I have had lots of people who have landed in country and been like, oh no, my phone doesn't work. How am I going to do anything that I planned? Laura Lee, can we get a copy of the presentation slides, or is the info on the website? I can I can absolutely send you the slides. I will put them in one of the follow-up emails for you. Great. Amazing. Thanks, Melissa. Lots of things to take away. Wonderful. I am going to come off video, take a drink of water because I'm clearly losing my voice. But we will see you very soon. Spend some time in the expo checking things out. Information's in there about scholarships. Information is in there about travel partners that you could work with. And again, I will stick around for another couple of minutes and answer questions in the chat. Thanks so much for coming out, and we'll chat soon. Bye.